Week 8 edition. Like always, I'm your host, Brian Duchaine.
And I'm Corey Sullivan.
We're back at it. Back making NFL expert picks. I don't know if you can still consider Corey an expert, but, he's out here trying to do his thing. But no, one of these days he's going to get them all right. It's just
you're right. Eventually, I'm going to have a week like you. So far, Brian is 30, 17, and 1, thanks to that Seahawks-Cardinals game, and I am 21, 26, and 1. So I've got some work to do this week. Brian, what do you got for me?
Well, we're going to start it off with the trash of the trashiest. To begin, Jags at Titans. Titans are favored by 3 in this one. I don't know how you could really pick a winner in this one. You got DeMarco Murray and Marcus Mariota against the all-star Bortles, which Bortles, we've seen him not really make smart decisions this year, and, the Titans haven't really made smart decisions either, unless they're playing the Lions. That last drive against the Lions was a good one, but I haven't really seen anything that I really like out of the Titans besides DeMarco Murray just tearing it up out there. But if I had to pick a winner in this one, I'm going with the Titans all day. I'm staying with that Vegas pick of Titans by 3. And I think it's just more favorable to pick the Titans because they're at home. And when there's a crap matchup like this one, you just pick the home team and you got your winner, and that's what I'm going with. I'm taking the Titans.
Brian, I know that the Titans are 1-3 at home this year, but like you said, Bortles has been playing like trash. A lot of turnovers. It's something that a lot of Jags fans have talked about, that Bortles he's a good player, but he turns the ball over a lot. And they don't really have anything outside of Bortles on that offense. They have decent receivers, decent tight end, but they don't really have a run game to support Bortles when he does struggle. And the defense is good, but it's hard to shut teams down when your quarterback's throwing interceptions and fumbling in inopportune areas of the field. Now, on the other side of the ball, Marcus Mariota was doing the exact same thing. That defense is good as well, but turning the ball over in general is going to hurt your team more often than not. And lately, he hasn't been doing that. The last couple games, he hasn't been doing that. Although they lost last week to the Colts, he looked a little worn down in the end, and a couple mistakes there at the end really sealed the deal for the Colts. They played well all game long, but just couldn't pull it out against the Colts, which is sad because the Colts aren't that good either. But I'm rolling with you, and I think that they can handle the Jags at home since the Jags aren't a very good team just yet, and Marcus Mariota and DeMarco Murray are much more potent than the Jaguars' offense in my eyes. So we're going to move on to the next game. Your favorite, I know it. We're going back to London. We got the Washington team, which I'm refusing to say their name until they change it. It's a little disrespectful. I know I've been talking about it. We've been talking about it the last couple of weeks, but until they change it, I'm just going to say Washington. And so hopefully that's all right with everybody. And they're facing the Cincinnati Bengals. Who do you got in this one?
All right, we're just going to call them the Washington Water Bears for now. We can just call them the Water Bears, and the Washington Water Bears are at the Bengals, playing in London, and the Bengals are a 3-point favorite in this one. And, Matt Jones, key part of that offense for the Water Bears, going out there trying to do their thing. And then Jordan Reed, I've heard he's cleared. You're going to have to confirm that, but it's just something that I've read about. And then you got your boy, who you always are talking about because you're such a huge fan, Michigan State's finest Kirk Cousins, going out there just ready to tear it up against the Bengals. I know just one of your favorites in the league. You never stop talking about him. You think he should be in the Pro Bowl every year. And personally, I'm not really a fan of him in the NFL as much as you are, but I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to say the Bengals take this one. I think the Bengals defense is going to step up. Kirk Cousins is going to panic in London. Maybe his accent isn't perfected like it should be. People are going to hassle him before the game, and I'm taking the Bengals. I'm going to stay with that Vegas pick of Bengals by 3. What about you?
My love for Kirk Cousins, so it's right up there, right next to Jermaine Kearse. And so as a Water Bears quarterback, I think he's a perfect fit for that organization. And I like what you said about Jordan Reed. I believe he is playing. He, along with Josh Norman, were both cleared to travel to London, and they're hopefully they'll be ready to go. I know that Norman will be ready to go. Jordan Reed is the top option for my boy Kirk Cousins when when he's all good to go. But on the other side of the ball, AJ Green is playing lights out, and Andy Dalton finally got his security blanket, Tyler Eifert, back, although he didn't do a whole lot last week. He's finally got all the pieces back, and the defense is playing decent, good enough to win. I don't think that they're a top team in the league, but potentially a playoff team, a wild card team, and I think that they have more firepower than this Redskins team. Man, I didn't think I was going to say it. I apologize, everybody. The Water Bears team just isn't very good. But I'm rolling with you, and I'm going with the Bengals. Just too much firepower with A.J. Green and Dalton's favorite target, Eifert, back. I think they can handle the Water Bears out in London in this one.
All right, so we're having some Tigers ripping up the Water Bears. That's going to be a battle over in London. And moving on to Chiefs-Colts, and Chiefs 3-point pick in this one, playing at the Colts. And we've seen the Colts struggles, and I didn't think the Colts would struggle this much this year. And Andrew Luck, sometimes he tears it up, sometimes he doesn't. First half, he can go nothing and then try to rebound in the second half, and there's just nothing there that he can dig his way out of the hole. So I'm going to go ahead, and I think this is the week that the Colts can actually do it. And I think against a decent team like the Chiefs, who are a 3-point favorite, we're going up against Spencer Ware and Jamal Charles, even though Jamal Charles, we don't know if it's going to be the Jamal Charles that's the Pro Bowler or the Jamal Charles that is on the DL, well, baseball terms, DL, IR for football. But I don't know which one we're going to get. So that's the whole thing. It's their running game is pretty good. And I think their team kind of relies on the running game. And Alex Smith, he's not going to throw bombs down the field all day. Colts offense looks okay, but their defense absolutely horrendous. But I'm going to take the upset pick. I'm going with the Colts in this one. I think the Chiefs are going down at the Colts. What do you think?
Well, I'm down 9 games to you, so hopefully I can get this one back. I'm rolling with the Chiefs. The Chiefs have been able to, I wouldn't exactly say shut down Derek Carr and Drew Brees, but they contain them, and I think those guys are much better quarterbacks. I don't know about much better, but they are better quarterbacks than Andrew Luck, and especially with Andrew Luck's depleted receiving core, although potentially Dante Moncrief is going to be playing this week. Potentially. I mean, it is only Thursday, so don't quote me on that, but at least he's getting a couple of his weapons back, but without his full arsenal, this Chiefs defense is underrated. They're a good unit, and the offense is good. And if Jamal Charles isn't ready to go, Spencer Ware is doing a good job back there handling the offense and fitting in the Andy Reid's scheme. So I'm rolling with the Chiefs in this one. I think that they can handle Luck and what that offense has, especially with how terrible that Colts defense is.
Well, I'm looking forward to picking up another win when you're wrong again. And, I appreciate you picking the other team for that one. But moving on, Cardinals at Panthers. We got the Panthers, who are 1-5, but 3-point favorites this week because playing at home against the Cardinals, and the Cardinals looked absolutely terrible last week against the Seahawks. Seahawks equally looked terrible with them. So we're going on to Cardinals-Panthers, and you look at it, Cam Newton bouncing back from these concussions. You don't know if he's going to come back and want to take more hits, want to roll out of the pocket, what kind of guy he's going to be. And moving forward, it's going to be interesting to see how he handles that. But their run game, I don't think they have to rely on Fozzie Whitaker anymore. They're getting some of their guys back, so that's going to be interesting to see. They're getting some guys back. Their run game is going to be totally different moving forward with the Cardinals. And the Cardinals, if they play anything like they did against the Seahawks, they're going to get blown out because they're on the road. They played like that at home against the Hawks. And if there was one shining moment for the Cardinals, it was David Johnson. And that guy just doesn't look human at some points, and he just runs through the defensive line, outruns everybody. And then shout out to Floyd also for just dropping passes. That was huge at the end of the game. And we'll take a tie instead of a loss. So shout out to you for doing that. But I'm going to go with the Panthers. I'm staying with the expert pick on that one. Panthers by 3. I'm going to say they win by 10. What's it looking like for you?
That's a good assessment. I like the Panthers coming off of their bye week. I think they'll be refocused now. Not that they weren't refocused before, but another week to let Jay Stu heal up, to let Cam, get all his ducks in a row. And that defense, it has been looking atrocious all season long. It's the reason they're 1-5. And I mean, it's not all on their defense. It's not like Cam has been balling out of control on offense. But the Cardinals, on the other hand, they just played 5 quarters of football, of hard defensive football. Offense as well. Their offense was on the field almost 90 plays, I believe. And the defense was out there just the same. So to be coming off a 5-quarter game on a Sunday night and then coming back in the next week and playing a team that's fresh, rested, and has been preparing for you for 2 weeks is going to be tough. I think that the Cardinals are good enough to hang with them for a while, but I think the Panthers' freshness will just outlast whatever the Cardinals have left. And, you touched on it perfectly. David Johnson had a great game against the Seahawks, and the best game you'd expect from any running back in the league. And that's the Seahawks' forte is shutting down the running game. But David Johnson was able to do it. There's no reason he shouldn't be able to do it on this defense. But I think Cam and his guys are ready to go this week, and they're desperate to get a win because 1-6 isn't going to get them to the postseason. So I'm rolling with the Carolina in this one.
Yeah, I'm not sure they're going to be in the postseason anyway. I'm not convinced that they can rebound from 1-5, but we'll keep an eye on them moving forward. We're both picking them in that matchup. But moving forward to Raiders at Bucks, this is going to be a thriller to watch. Joking if anybody watches the Raiders or the Bucks. Raiders actually decent record. I just personally don't like watching them. And their defense not looking good. They're almost last in the league. I believe it's their pass defense. Correct me if I'm wrong with that one, but one side of their defense, absolutely terrible pass game, and their secondary needs help in that department. I just think the Raiders they're worse than their record shows for sure. They're kind of like remind me of a Lions team back in 2007 that started 6-2, finished 7-9. It's kind of where they're headed, and I don't think they're going to finish 7-9 or anything like that, but I could see the Raiders losing a lot of their games to end the season and finishing 8-8, missing the playoffs. I don't know how you see that, but I'm going to go. Man, it's hard for me to pick one or the other. You got Cooper and Crabtree versus Winston and Evans. I'm going to pick the Raiders in this one. I say it comes down to a field goal or two, and we know how the kicking troubles happen. In Tampa Bay, Janikowski got more muscle than anybody else in his leg. I believe it's Aguayo. And that guy, 6 for 11 on field goals. We saw him miss clutch field goals in a primetime game. And if you're going to put the game on his leg, it almost looks like a college kicker that goes out there, and somebody like Oregon or Michigan State that doesn't have a good kicker, and they're out there trying to compete. And this is what it reminds me of. And if you don't have a good kicker and all that, although you're 1-point favorites, I'm going with the Raiders in this one.
I can definitely see you going with the Raiders. No issues with that. The Raiders, Derek Carr has gone over 225 passing yards only one time in the last 4 weeks. That's something troublesome. Amari Cooper and Michael Crabtree are the only receivers really getting open for him. The defense, like you said, is playing awful. Their pass defense, like you said, one of the worst in the league, as well as their run defense and allowing scoring points. They're just overall a terrible defense, top to bottom. And on the other side of the ball, the Buccaneers, they got to play better. Whenever Jameis Winston can manage the game and not try to do too much, they usually win. He's coming up big the last 2 weeks, and that's a large part to Jacquizz Rodgers. The new addition when all their running backs went down. Quiz came in and has been balling out over 100 rushing yards these last 2 weeks. And when he gets going, Jameis Winston can get going with Mike Evans, and they're a tough team to beat. The defense is decent, and they're playing good football right now, 2-0 in the last 2 weeks. So I'm rolling with the Bucs, although, like you said, that it's going to come down to that kicking game, or hopefully not. Aguayo, 6 for 11. His long for the season is 43 yards. Not a very good look for the second-round pick. So we'll see how it goes, but, I think that he'll get more comfortable as the season goes on, and I think the Bucs got this one.
And this is actually a matchup that we're excited about next. Seahawks Saints. It's going to be a tough one at New Orleans, and we know that they play music outside. They got all the rowdy fans, Mardi Gras beads everywhere. This is going to be an interesting one for the Seahawks, trying to go and steal one in their building, especially after a game like we saw last week. Got Drew Brees, Brandon Cooks going up against Dougie B. Not the State Park Dougie B like we saw camping. If anybody wants in on this joke, it was a park ranger, looked identical to Doug Baldwin, about a foot shorter though. But Doug Baldwin, Russell Wilson going up against Drew Brees, Brandon Cooks, and this is going to be, I think, it'll be a slugfest because the Seahawks offense looked awful last week. Offensive line, awful, and it's not a good combination to have a horrible offensive line and an immobile quarterback that can't get out and flush the pocket because he's injured. And we saw his knee giving him trouble. His ankle, I think, is still a problem. And when they send the pressure, he can't get out and run like he used to. He can't juke the guys, can't spin around and make those miraculous throws like he has in the past. So at what point do you put in Trayvon Boykin? I know he's a rookie. He's not very accurate with his passes, but he can escape the run or the blitz. So if they bring in the blitz and he sees it coming, he can roll out and get out of the way. Unlike Russell, who's going to take a big hit, likely be out for the season one of these days if he doesn't recover. But Seahawks defense looked absolutely flawless last week. 6 points given up. I don't know what else you could really expect from that team. It's 6 points on the Arizona side, 6 points on the Seattle side, and they give up 3 in regulation. So I don't know how much more you can really ask from the defense. Offense definitely needs to step it up. If the defense can keep them in the game, I think the Hawks win this one. Pick is Seahawks by 3, and the Saints defense absolutely atrocious so far. So I think if the Seahawks can score points against anybody, it'll be the Saints. I'm going to stick with that 3-point pick.
I mean, I'm a homer too, so I'm rolling with the Seahawks, but it's going to be tough. You know, just like the Cardinals, they played 5 quarters as well, and the defense was on the field all day long. And I guess that's even a tribute to Bobby Wagner and the rest of that defense. At the very end of the game, they were still making plays. So Russ and the offenses are the ones that have to get it going. They have to find ways to get open. Jermaine Kearse, my other favorite player outside of Kirk Cousins, he just disappears for a whole game and shows up for one big play at the end of the game because nobody expects him to touch the ball. And being in those situations doesn't help. And I'm not letting Jimmy or Doug or any of those guys off the hook either. Paul Richardson hasn't been getting open. Tyler Lockett hasn't looked like, last year Tyler Lockett or even the beginning of this year. So I think this is one of those games where they got to get their groove back. They got to get open. They got to get that rhythm going. I know it took a while for Doug to hit his stride last year. And then once he hit it, it was, every game, 1 touchdown, 2 touchdowns. So this is one of those games that could get started against this Saints defense. Drew Brees, one of the best quarterbacks of all time, is going to have his stats. The Seahawks aren't going to make him look terrible. I don't think anyways. They have the ability to, but, Drew Brees is a next level quarterback and can play against any defense. So I think that he'll be all right trying to get Brandon Cooks and Mike Thomas the ball. But I think that the Seahawks they have something. I'm not sure what it is. They got rid of Spiller. So, Spiller won't be returning to play against his old team, but it'll be a nice homecoming for Jimmy Graham. So we'll see what Jimmy can do. I think Jimmy and Russ, their connection's been special the last few weeks, barring, last week against the Cardinals. But I think they get back to it, and I expect a big day from Jimmy. So that's what I say. I think the Seahawks win by at least 2 touchdowns.
Oh, 2 touchdowns. Going with the bold pick. I like it. I hope they can hold up with that pick, and it'll be a good game to watch. I think it'll be exciting for sure, regardless of the outcome. But another game that I'm excited about personally, you're probably not as excited about it, but Lions at Texans. I don't know why. For some reason, the Texans are a 2.5-point pick in this one. With the way Brock Osweiler played last week, I don't know if you could favor him against the Browns at this point. And that was absolutely terrible. You have DeAndre Hopkins, who's one of the best receivers in the game, and you can't get him open because you can't throw the football. And then that fumble that was nobody even hit him. The ball just slipped out of his hands, and it almost was like watching a JV high school game because it was like a JV high school quarterback that was out there trying to throw the ball. His hands weren't big enough, and the ball was slipping out of his hands. And they're trying to get him developed. Just what it looked like to me. And then you got Stafford and Marvin Jones on the other side, Anquan Bolden stepping up, getting touchdowns every week. Tate starting to hit a groove there, and Lions secondary starting to step up. We've seen them get some key interceptions at the end of games, and they're keeping that streak going. Every week they've had at least winning by one score or losing by one score. So it's been a one possession game every week, which is crazy. And I don't remember the last time that happened, that it's been decided by either a field goal or a touchdown every week. And I think this hopefully is going to be the week that they break that streak, but I don't think it will be. And I think the Texans are a 2.5-point favorite. I say the Lions come up big again and get a pick at the end of the game. Osweiler throwing it into the Lions secondary. I say the Lions win by a field goal again.
I think you're going to have to hit up your boy Darius Slay and tell him to wear that red suit. But I think I'm going with you on this one. The Lions offense is rolling right now. They've been killing it week in and week out. Big play Darius Slay has been doing this thing week after week, keeping that defense together, keeping them in games. And the Texans, like you said, they look awful. Brock Osweiler is the heart and soul of that team, and he makes DeAndre Hopkins look like the 49ers' Michael Crabtree. He just looks awful. Fuller looks awful. Lamar Miller looks whatever. So I don't think that the Texans are doing anything right now, and especially since they lost J.J. Watt, their defense is reeling. Their offense is doing terrible because Osweiler is terrible. I have no confidence in this team at all. I'm rolling with the Lions.
I like it. We can both agree on the Lions. For once, we're both agreeing. And the Lions hopefully can improve to 5-3 and keep that record going. But next, New England at Buffalo. This should be an interesting one. Buffalo, way better than we've seen them in the past. LaShawn McCoy stepping up. Tyrod Taylor stepping up at times when it's needed. Buffalo's defense really holding them in games, and I think Buffalo's looking better than I thought people thought they would at the beginning of the season. But the problem is they're going against the Patriots this week, who have looked just almost unbeatable at times. And I know Buffalo beat them last time, but that was a Tom Brady-less New England team that got shut out. They were on their third-string quarterback. I mean, what do you really expect with Brissett starting? He had one decent game, but when it came down to it, couldn't really throw the football against a decent Bills defense. Brady's going to be a different story. And you got Gronk out there, Tom Brady. I don't even think this one's really going to be close for Buffalo, and I think New England takes it by 14.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that the Patriots have looked unstoppable recently, but they've been playing teams that haven't been that good. This is their first real test, a real good defense. They played the Bengals, they played the Browns, and they played who else did they play? They played the Bengals, Browns, and the Steelers. But they play the Steelers and they don't have Big Ben. They play the Bengals and they don't have Tyler Eifert. They play the Browns, they don't have anybody. So Tom Brady has played great, as you'd expect, but he hasn't been tested. This is his first real test, going against a defense that can get to him, going against the guys that are healthy on the other side of the ball. So it's going to be interesting. This is the same Bills team that shut them down 16-0, although they didn't have Gronk or Brady when they came into Foxborough and the Bills won. So this is going to be a good one. But Shady's been balling. He's been doing well. Holding down the offense. Tyrod's been a good game manager. The defense has been getting to quarterbacks, so I'm excited for this one, and I think they got what it takes. I think that they'll bring the Patriots back to reality, and they'll refocus the Patriots for the second half of the season. I think the Bills got this one for the season sweep.
Man, 2 bold picks in one show. This is getting crazy up in here. I don't know if you heard the point that New England was a 6-point favorite. But I'll let you go with the underdog pick for that one. That'll be interesting for sure. It'll be fun to keep track of that game and just kind of see which one of us will get that one right. And then this one, I think we can make this one pretty quick. Jets at Browns. Probably one of the worst games we're ever going to watch outside of the Arizona-Seattle game last week. And I don't know if I even want to turn on NFL Red Zone this Sunday if they're going to show any sort of clips of this game, because I can't believe I'm doing this, but with how the Jets have looked recently, we saw Geno Smith come out and play. Now he's injured again, and they don't have any other choice but to go back to Ryan Fitzpatrick. He comes out, slams the general manager, slams the management, says, well, I guess if nobody else has confidence in me and everybody else gives up, why would anybody have confidence in you? And then he says, I guess I just have to trust myself. I wouldn't trust myself if I was out there throwing 11 picks in 2 games and 6 picks in 1 game. there's no way that he should be starting for any team right now with those kind of numbers. And I can't believe I'm going to do it, but I'm picking the Browns to win a football game.
Man.
Even though the Jets are favored by 3 at Cleveland, I'm going to go with the Browns. Browns probably going to use that World Series momentum, trying to get fans in the stadium and say, hey, we got a World Series team. Everybody come check us out. That hype's probably not going to work. But I'm still picking the Browns, and I can't believe it. We'll see what happens. Horrible game overall, but what do you think?
I don't think they're going to be one of those 0-16 teams, but if it was going to be a win, it would be this week, as the rest of their schedule doesn't look too good either. I was looking for a win on their schedule, and outside of this week, I just wasn't seeing it. But I can't go with the Browns. They don't have Corey Coleman. They just have too many question marks up and down that team, and Kroll is really all they have. He's been getting loose with the ground game, but they just don't have the firepower to beat anybody. And I don't think that they want to yet. I think they want to wait till a couple of more teams that are at the bottom of the barrel pick up some wins so they don't lose out on that number 1 pick before they really start trying to play hard and scheme correctly. And I really just think that they've given up. I mean, between them and the Bears, it's they're one game within each other for last place. So I think that they don't have anything to gain by winning this game except getting a worse draft pick. And not that they've been doing well with their draft picks anyways, but on the other side, the Jets have been playing decent. Obviously not too great if they're going back to their quarterback that they gave up on. And then he was pouting on his press conference that everyone gave up on me. And yeah, I mean, obviously, look at how the team did when you were their quarterback. Of course, they gave up on you. They gave you every chance to be successful. They even kept you the starter after you threw 6 picks. So I really don't know what his issue is, but I think that they're going to win this week just by default because the Browns are awful.
Man, we're disagreeing on a lot of picks this week. This is going to be good. I see what you're doing. You're trying to gain back those games that you've lost.
I got to get back those 9 games.
It's the strategy. You got to do it. So I don't blame you for picking the Jets. I was right on the fence, and just looking at it, Ryan Fitzpatrick starting was really the turning point for me. But the Browns absolutely atrocious also. So I will personally not be watching this game. I hope you're not either. But I'll check the score at the end of the day just to see how we did. And then moving on, San Diego at Denver. Saw a pretty good game last time these two played and came down to an onside kick that spiraled out of control, ended up in Denver's arms. They had a chance to come down and tie it and couldn't do it. But this time at home, I feel like we're going to be hearing that Broncos sound all day when they play San Diego. And I don't think San Diego is going to be able to do it in Denver, playing in the altitude, something they're not used to. And I just think they got up to, I believe it was a 20-0 lead last time and almost lost it. And it's just kind of been the Chargers' way this year, is building the lead, tanking it in the fourth quarter, losing the game. They tried to do it last time they played the Broncos, but I know the Broncos have had some troubles. And C.J. Anderson, both of us not real big fans of C.J. Anderson. And I don't know, just not my thing to root for C.J. Anderson or really anybody else on that team. But got strip sack Miller. Got to be afraid of that. Phillip Rivers is going to be running for his life. And I think if they're at home, Denver 4.5-point picks in Vegas, I would bet on them if I was down there. And that's who I'm picking this week. What about you?
Yeah, I think I'm rolling with Denver too. The way that the defense is playing is better than a lot of teams in the league. So I'm rolling with them. C.J. Anderson, unfortunately, is lost for who knows how long. Tore his meniscus. I don't think it's confirmed yet, but I'm pretty sure torn meniscus. They put him on the IR, and it's Devontae Booker's job to lose now. He's down to full-time back, has been stealing carries from C.J. Anderson all season long anyway. Definitely, hope that C.J. heals up and comes back, because you never want to see an injury. But I just think Booker's been playing better and should have been getting the majority of the carries anyway. But that's neither here nor there. Talk about Trevor Siemian. I'm not a big fan of him. I don't know why they're not playing Paxton Lynch just yet. Demaryius Thomas is one of those guys that's having a year like Bernard Hopkins or DeAndre Hopkins. And just is not getting it done right now. So it's the connection there is just not happening. Simeon's main guy has been Emmanuel Sanders, and Sanders has played, particularly well. So although everyone would like to see for their fantasy team Demaryius Thomas to get more balls thrown his way, it's just not happening with Simeon. And if Paxton Lynch is, the guy for the future, might as well play him now. But on the other side, Melvin Gordon has been playing well for the Chargers, and Phillip Rivers has kept them in games. They've only lost by a maximum of 6 points, so they've been in every single game. They've given away more games than not. So this is a team that should have a winning record. But like you said, it's tough to beat the Broncos, especially at home. It's one of those venues that's kind of like CenturyLink, where it's virtually impossible to beat the home team. So I'm rolling with the Broncos.
And we saw C.J. Anderson and Booker kind of split those carries last week, and apparently C.J. Anderson no longer a thing. So Booker going to have to take over at this point, and it's going to be probably not any different. Like you said, Booker's kind of easing into that offense, and now if he can pick up the slack that C.J. Anderson's leaving behind, we'll see what happens in that one. But I just think that Broncos sound will be just rolling, and we're both picking Denver in that one. Moving on, Green Bay at Atlanta. I don't know what happened to Richard Rodgers. I picked him last week to just come out and have a huge day, and then he let me down again. I don't know if he was a product of all the injuries last year. What's going on with Richard Rodgers? Because I thought he was a decent tight end last year, and I thought he was going to have a big year this year. Not really showing up, and Aaron Rodgers hasn't really looked like himself, and it's kind of weird because last season we saw that he didn't have any weapons out there. Almost his whole receiving core down to Nelson and Adams, both injured, and he still found a way to tear it up. This year, everybody comes back, and he's not looking as good as he did last year. So I don't really understand what's going on with Aaron Rodgers. And over in Atlanta, played a great game against the Seahawks at CenturyLink. But they're hot and cold. They have a decent defense, and then Julio Jones, just an animal out there, just running over everybody and just looking like I don't know how to explain it. Just a beast. No covering Julio Jones. When he gets out there, the Hawks shut him down and everything the first half, and then the second half he just went wild on him. So Julio Jones at home, is Green Bay's defense going to be able to stop him? I don't think so. And unless Richard Rodgers comes back, Aaron Rodgers, it's the Rodgers trio. They need to figure it out, or else Atlanta's going to win. I'm picking Atlanta. Vegas pick is Atlanta by 3, and I'm going to go ahead and stick with that one. How's it looking for you?
It's looking rough to pick the Packers. They don't have any running back. I love Ty Montgomery. I loved him when he was at Stanford. He was my favorite player in college football, but I just don't see him as a running back. He played decent last week. It was a little weird seeing him going out for passes and then running the ball every once in a while. But what's really bothersome is Devontae Adams. He has great games or decent games, and then he comes back the next week and he has 2 catches for 30 yards. And unfortunately for his owners, he had 13 catches, 130 plus yards and 2 touchdowns last week. So that means this week, dud. And Jordy Nelson has been nowhere to be found on the field this whole season. Maybe his injuries were a lot more extensive and it's just been harder to come back for him. That's neither here nor there. Rodgers finally broke the 300-yard mark when they wanted to run the score up at the very end of the game. Had just barely got to 300. So I'm just not confident in this Packers offense and what it's been doing this year. I really don't know what's going on. Randall Cobb has been playing decent. I don't think there's any excuse on why they're not looking good. They're just not looking that great. They're not looking unstoppable as they have in past years. And on the other side, the Falcons, Matt Ryan is looking like Aaron Rodgers. He's looking like he's unstoppable. Him and Julio is just a connection that for some reason nobody can stop. Julio had an amazing day against the Panthers defense, 300 yards, and then came back and played very well against Richard Sherman. Any receiver would love the day that Julio had against Richard Sherman. So I'm not sure who for the Packers can cover Julio. I don't think anybody can. If he did decent on Richard Sherman, there's nobody else in the league that can really stop him. So the one thing for the the Falcons, though, is somebody else has to step up as their second receiver. It can't be Tevin Coleman out of the backfield. It's got to be somebody, Mohamed Sanu or somebody has to step up and really take over that second receiver position, because that tandem is not going to work down the stretch when it's, you're running back out of the backfield, catching passes, and then just Julio Jones. Although Devontae Freeman, I believe I mentioned him earlier on accident, talking about somebody else, but he's actually playing for the Falcons this year, and he's been doing a good job on the ground. He's been keeping defenses honest, and I think with their duo of Freeman in the run game and Julio in the pass game, is going to be a lot tougher for the Packers to key in on one specific thing. They can't stack the box. They can't just play zone. So it's going to be a tough game, but I think the Falcons handle them at home.
It'll be interesting for sure, and I think it depends on what Aaron Rodgers shows up to this one. But outside of Lambeau Field, you got to pick the Falcons. And moving on to another home game for a big team that needs a win to keep their postseason hopes rolling, and we've seen them tearing it up already, the Dallas Cowboys, which who would have ever thought? Romo goes down and Dak Prescott comes in, and they're looking better than ever right now, at least better than they have in the last 15 years. And you got Dallas as a 4.5-point favorite over Philadelphia, with Pete Wentz's long-lost cousin Carson going out there trying to throw bombs. We saw him throw one to Darius Slay right into his arms. That was awesome. When he threw that pick to the Lions, and the Lions have already been over them. But as far as Philadelphia goes, I just don't see them going into Dallas and stealing a win from them. Ezekiel Elliott just running wild, looking like a cheetah out there, running through and just breaking free. I believe he had I don't even know how many yards it was. I want to say it was at least 60 or 70 yards when he broke one, and nobody could catch him. We saw him go up to the red zone suites and celebrate with the fans, and I think we're going to be seeing a lot of that against Philadelphia. Dallas, not really the best place for a home field, as I think personally. It's a big venue, but it's just something about it. It's not really one of those stadiums that are just like a CenturyLink or anything like that, but they do play well at home, and I think as long as they get a decent amount of fans in there. I know a lot of people still go to the Cowboys games now that they're good. They're getting some more fans in there. It's not going to be as loud as CenturyLink gets because it's so huge and sound doesn't really travel from the 5 and 6 and 700 level or whatever it is in that place. But personally, I'm going to say the Cowboys stick with that Vegas pick. Cowboys pulling out Ezekiel Elliott, about to run wild. Dak Prescott about to run wild all over the Eagles defense. What do you think in this one?
Well, I think it was rather impressive that the Eagles knocked off the undefeated Vikings last week. But you look at it, and it was all on the defense, to be honest with you. Carson Wentz hasn't been playing well since the bye week. 4 turnovers in the last 3 weeks, 2 losses, and then they pulled out the win when they faced Minnesota this week. So they're not looking that great. It happens with all rookies. There's an adjustment period, and unfortunately for Carson, it's happening right now. We're in the midst of it, and unfortunately, he's going against the offense that's rolling, the best offensive line in the game, and that was really Philadelphia's strength last week. Is they got 6 sacks on Bradford, forcing them to make bad decisions and getting them on the run. That's recipe for disaster for Sam Bradford. Unfortunately, this week, I don't think they're going to be able to get to Dak Prescott behind that offensive line. Easily the best offensive line in the game. Like you said, Ezekiel Elliott is running wild behind that line as a rookie and really hasn't had to have that adjustment period yet, and probably won't even have to because, of how good that offensive line is. And I think that Des Bryant is going to be returning this week, so just to add more weapons for Dak Prescott. I think that the Cowboys got this one pretty easy. The Eagles are just working through too many things right now to try to get back on the right track, and Dallas is rolling. So I'm rolling with Dallas, and until Ezekiel Elliott is stopped and proves otherwise that he's not the best running back in the game right now, I'm rolling with them.
And our last matchup of the day, finishing out on Monday night, we got Minnesota at Chicago. And I know Chicago's not very good. Personally, I'm going to have to pick Minnesota in this one. They're 5-point favorites, even though they're at Chicago. Chicago, I know, has been a tough place to go in and play, and usually it's because of the cold weather, and I just don't think it's going to be a real cold day. And We're not going to see the snow and ice everybody really dreads when they go to Chicago. Jay Cutler, I believe he's coming back. I'm not really sold on Jay Cutler personally, and I think when you look at it, they might have been better off without him. Now he's coming back, and he's going to try to get back into the game. And already a terrible team in Chicago. Alshon Jeffrey trying to do everything he can to keep this team afloat, but running game absolutely terrible. Defense not good. Then the Vikings defense is actually pretty good this year. And Bradford, like we say every week, don't know how Bradford is succeeding in this offense. He's looking like a decent quarterback for once in his life. But personally, I think the Minnesota defense comes up huge. I say Cutler throws at least 2 picks, and I'm picking the Minnesota Vikings in this one.
Yeah, this is another game where it's tough to pick the Bears. I just don't think that they have their heart in the game this season. With Hoyer out, I think when they had Hoyer, they were still trying to fight and win some games. But I think once Hoyer went down and was out, I think that's when they threw in the towel. And the Jay Cutler experience just hasn't worked out. I think they need to get a quarterback in this upcoming draft, try to find a franchise quarterback, and there's no other way to do that than to lose football games, and that's the sad truth to it. You're not going to get a quarterback late in the draft. It rarely happens. There's a Russell Wilson once every 20, 30 years. So they're going to have to figure something out. This is arguably the best, and they just home or away, it's not going to matter. The Bears just don't have what it takes to beat this caliber of a defense, and they're going to need an amazingly off day from everybody on the defense and offense to keep it close. But I'm rolling with the Vikings in this one.
And that just about wraps it up for all of our picks this week. We're going to see what happens. Me versus Corey. Hopefully I can add to my lead and not leave the door open for him to come back and catch up. But everybody tune in this Sunday, NFL Red Zone. Wherever else you got to watch games, I don't really care. It's going to be a good week.
And we'll see you later. Bye.